what we're going to start talking about, we're going to talk about mobile first design. And the idea of mobile first design is you want to design your websites so that they display on mobile devices and they look good there. And then as you get bigger devices, you can make them look better on those other devices. And the general rule of thumb is you design for the smallest window first, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I have my one column web page template right here. You see that? I got my horizontal nav bar. And if I'm on a mobile device, my screen is going to be possibly as narrow as this. And this really makes for an odd-looking nav bar. People don't expect to see it quite like that. So the idea here is you want to design for a mobile device, but then as you get wider, you can design for bigger devices. So my demonstration today is going to talk about how do you get it so that when you're on a mobile device that is too small to fit your nav bar, how do you get it so it displays one link on top of another, just like a vertical nav bar, but when you have a device that's a little wider, it'll have a horizontal nav bar. So the concept here is the idea of breakpoints. Now, a breakpoint is where your design changes based on the width. And the rule of thumb is design for the smallest width, and then as you go wider, if it starts looking weird or you've got room to do something new, you want to figure out where is that width, and you want to design and make it look different. So what I'm going to do to figure this out is I'm going to put my developer tool on. And so I get my developer tool, F12 on Windows. I go into Chrome. And one of the things you can do is as you resize it, you're going to see right at the top a little width. So right now, if I pause and I go and I move my width, right now it says it's 599 pixels wide. When I get to about 607, I have a horizontal nav bar. So one of the things I'm thinking about doing is, let's say at about 612 is about the width where we want to introduce a horizontal nav bar. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a query which is going to allow us to figure out what width we want to use. Okay? So in order to do that, let me show you what the code is going to look like. All right, technically it's called media query, and I'll show you what it looks like at media. Okay, this says what kind of media are we using? Screen. We're talking about like using any kind of screen. It could be a mobile device. It could be just like standard desktop window or laptop or whatever. And then we're going to add a little and sign here, and we're going to give device. You have device width. You could have device width. You can have a minimum device width or whatever. And so let's say we're going to do 600 pixels. Oops. So you create this kind of a query here, and then you put brackets around it. Now, this is just device width, but we have other ways we can do it. We can do the minimum device width, and what that's going to look like, give me a moment. All right, so the problem with just device width is that this means it has to be exactly this wide, and that's not a good idea. So we're going to set, we can do min width or we can do maximum width. So if we want to do, one of the things I like to do is design just for my for all my mobile devices by putting them without using any kind of media query. And so things like main nav, color, background color, we're not going to change that at all. So I'm going to move that up here. Okay, so this is going to be for every main nav. It's all going to have that color and background color. Okay. The idea of a nav container with a list style type of none and a margin of 0, that is going to be for all of my navigation bars, okay, no matter what kind it is. However, this one here that uses a display of inline block is only going to be for my screens that are wider than, and I'll change that to 610 pixels. Now, I can't tell you what number this is. It depends on the actual nav bar. And so I'm going to drag that up here, but I'm going to tab it over. So one of the things you're going to see is that when you set the minimum width at 610 pixels, suddenly our nav container list items are going to be displayed as inline block. Now the idea of displaying all of our hyperlinks as block is going to be on all of our pages, so I'm going to move that up. Hold on a second. I'm going to clear a little bit of room here. And I'm going to move that up. And one moment, there we go. And then this hover effect is going to be good for all of our pages, so I'm going to move that up as well. And we'll just clean it up a little bit. So really, all we're doing is we're going to make this is what makes it a horizontal nav bar, is this display inline block. And we're only going to stick it into this where it's a minimum width of 610 pixels. See that? So everything else is just standard. So we're going to save our changes. And another way to further emphasize this, well, we'll just try it this way first of all. And I saved my changes, so I'm going to go back to my page. I'm going to hit refresh. All right, see, there's our horizontal nav bar. When I move it in here, look at that. It's a vertical nav bar now. With one little problem, that left-hand margin I don't like. I want to get rid of it. Okay, but if you see here, this is your vertical nav bar. And then as soon as you go beyond 610 pixels, it will turn into a horizontal bar. There you go. So isn't that really nice? Because this is the only thing we need to do to turn it into a horizontal nav bar, as of now anyway. So everything else is styled. This creates a vertical nav bar. However, we need to get rid of our padding on our main nav, I think it is. Let's figure out where it came from, and then we'll fix it. I'm going to click on my nav. I'm going to click on the nav. It's the unordered list. So it has a class of nav container. So here we're going to add padding of 0 as well. Save our changes. Hit refresh. Home is now to the left. See that? And then when we go to small size, there we go. How's that for a nice little target there? This is mobile first. Now, once you get the idea of mobile first, you can create as many of these for as many widths as you want. And the rule of thumb is start mobile. So start at the smallest width you've got, which in this case is, let's just see roughly where that's at, 3/4. It's about 310. Or no, wait, not. I saw it there just for a moment. That's 350. 337 is as narrow as I can get on here. And this would be a lot of small mobile phones, right? What you could do is, this looks crappy here because that text is so large. We don't want it that big, so we might want to make it a little bit smaller. And then what you do is, as you expand out, if something looks wrong, you change it. And then you just keep going bigger and bigger and work your way out. What's good about this is it doesn't matter what kind of device someone's using. You're basing it on how it looks on the width. However, there's one more thing you should do, is you should check your files on other browsers. So I'm going to open this in my template here. I'm going to open it in Internet Explorer. And I want to make sure that when I open it, I also have Firefox. So I'm going to try Internet Explorer. I want to make sure that there's not some weird thing going on with my size. And so I want to test it on all of my browsers. I open it, it's just on my other screen, so let me just, there we go. One moment while it loads up. Full screen. So here is my template on Internet Explorer. As I go more narrow, you can see right now, because there's a little bit of margin on the left and right, it's technically speaking, as we set the width at 98%. I go smaller. Oh, excuse me. Smaller until I see what happens. You want to get just like within pixels. You got to test it out, and you don't ever want to see your horizontal nav bar break into 2 lines. And so that looks pretty good. The only thing I might do here differently is style by putting a little bottom border on each of these. But at this point, that's all you really need to know about doing these kinds of mobile first design. So you can set it as minimum width, you can set it as maximum width. when you do these kinds of queries, media queries, you got to make sure that you go from the smallest screen to the widest screen. So the way I style it is I do all of my generic styles first. In fact, the best way to do this is style at the narrowest width. So pick your template, narrowest width, do all of your styles here first. If you don't like the header, you think it's too big, make it smaller on the smallest size. And then as you go bigger, adjust as you go. So you want to get everything from typography to background color to background images. Anything you want to put in your site, put it at that smallest size. And then as you got everything in, then you go a little bit wider and you add your first breakpoint. Okay? And so this is all mobile first design. And this right here is where we start doing the horizontal nav bar. If you got a little bit larger one, you might want to do another one. It's at media screen and then you can do another minimum width. And maybe you do one at 900 pixels. And you create your curly brackets. Now, the other thing you got to do is you got to be extra careful. You got to make sure you do your selector, your properties and values just like you would before, but you'll notice they're all tabbed over. So if I want to do here, I could, for example, put body. And then inside, I could put, for example, font, family, Comic Sans MS. Yes, it is an affront to stylists everywhere. Probably a web designer lost his wings or a puppy died or something because I used Comic Sans. But watch what happens now with this design. Save my changes. One column template. Everything looks good. Go a little bit wider, a little bit wider. We got that. And suddenly, when I get wide enough beyond 900, it should go to Comic Sans. Let's see, did I do it right? Body. I better make sure I do one little thing here, just to make sure I override anything else. There we go. So take a look. Yes, horrendous, isn't it? Affront to designers everywhere. An abomination. All right, but look, at this point, we're not at 900 pixels, and as soon as I get a little bit farther, everything changes. So this is how you design for all kinds of devices. You can do it as small as a small mobile phone. You can do it like a tablet. You can then do big, ginormous screens, even televisions that might be like 2,000 pixels wide. You can do as many of these as you want. Just begin with the smallest first and keep working your way out. As soon as you need to make a change, you just drop in. This is called a breakpoint. You drop it in, you figure out the width. If things don't work quite right, you adjust them. Always, always, always design from the smallest and work your way out, or else you'll have all kinds of problems with your styles. All right, so I'm going to get rid of that affront to humanity, save my changes, and I think I'm good. You know what I decided before I go and end this video, I do want to just show you a breakdown of how to do it. So I've put a little comment here. So what you do is you just want to remind you you're adding styles for all device widths and make sure you're testing them on the narrowest widths. Put those just as standard styles you have inside of here. So all the things I want for my nav bar that doesn't matter what size it is, put it there. Then when I want to create my horizontal nav bar, it's going to be as long as it's at least 610 pixels wide, I put it there. And I just added a couple other breakpoints you might be interested in doing. I would be looking for around, what does it look like at about 900 pixels wide? What does it look like at 1020? That's going to be for like desktop screens and things like that. Okay, so keep that in mind and know that this is going to be roughly like a tablet kind of device. But you're going to have to experiment with each of these. So this at least gives you a general idea as to how I do it.